Hi everyone, it's Alice, and today I'm gonna do a winter TBR. Now, will I stick to this TBR? Probably not, knowing myself. I'll probably read like 2 of them and then I'll get distracted. But I finished my exams now and I am gonna have a little bit of time off work soon, so I'm excited. Hopefully, I'm gonna get to read loads. This time of year is like weirdly busy though, but all I really want to do is stay inside and not talk to anyone and read and eat snacks. Although, I guess I kind of want to do that all year round, but especially now because it's so cold out. Anyways, I've plucked some books off of my shelves that I feel like would be perfect to read in the winter months, and we've got some mysteries, some darker stuff, some historical fiction, and that's very much like what I'm in the mood for right now. The first one that I have is The Likeness by Tana French, and this is actually a book that I, in my mind, associate with autumn. It feels like a sort of autumnal read to me, but I have realized that I don't think I'm ever gonna get to this book during autumn because there are so many books that I would like to read during that season, and I don't think I'm ever gonna prioritize this because it's so chunky. So I feel like I just need to like reset my mind a little bit and we're gonna make this like a winter read. A lot of autumnal books do fit winter as well, so I'm hoping this is gonna work for that. I mean, you can read books anytime you want, but I really like reading books in like the seasons where I feel like they fit. This is the second book in a series. I read the first one ages and ages ago, but I'm really excited to read this because it is apparently a little bit dark academia-ish, or so I'm told. And the story follows this detective that we do meet in the first book, and she like changes teams. Like she starts working for another team, and she gets to this case that is like super disturbing because this girl has been murdered and she looks exactly like the detective. Like they're like doppelgangers. And to make it even worse, when they find this dead woman's ID, the name on the ID is like a name that this detective used undercover years ago. So there's definitely something weird going on. And I think what happens is that this detective ends up going undercover as this girl to sort of try to lure out the killer or something, which sounds kind of scary but very intriguing. I think most of this takes place at a university, which is where like the dark academia thing comes in, and I'm just really excited to read this book. I thought that the first book was really well written and very well crafted, and I'm excited to like see that kind of writing with this story. It sounds very atmospheric, and yeah, it is a little bit long though. It's like almost 700 pages, so that scares me a little bit, but maybe when I have some time off, I should just start reading this and just like zoom through it. Well, I'm not going to zoom through a book that is as big as this, but I can try. The second one that I have mentioned in a couple of TBRs already, I think. Still haven't read it. It's The Shadow of the Wind. And this is a book I get recommended all of the time. I actually get recommended The Likeness as well all of the time. And I really should just read this because it sounds perfect. It's set in Barcelona in 1945, and we meet this man who is grieving the loss of his mother, and he is the son of this book antiquarian, and he finds solace in his grief in this particular book that he finds, and he loves it, and he sets out to like find more of this author's work. And when he does that, he realizes that someone is like systematically destroying everything that this author has ever written, which is obviously weird. And I think he tries to like find out what's happening, and he's pulled into this dark underworld, and there are all of these secrets, and it sounds really intriguing. I feel like this just sounds perfect for me. I love historical fiction. I love books about books, and it sounds like it's gonna get a little bit dark, which you know I'm into. Then we have another book that also has a kind of like books about books kind of vibe. It's The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. This is an author I really just need to read something from because I think I will really like it. This one is about this famous, like, mysterious author who has written all of these outlandish stories throughout her life, and she's kept, like, the truth of her own life hidden. And there's, like, a whole mystery around it. But now she's nearing the end of her life, and she decides that she's gonna tell the truth. And she summons this biographer to her house to tell her story. And it seems like there are some weird parallels between this author and this biographer, and we've got something weird going on there. And it seems like her actual life story is like pretty weird. I remember hearing something about some feral twins in here that really stuck out to me. And there's something about a fire, maybe a murder. I don't really know, but it sounds interesting and a little complicated. This apparently also has some gothic vibes to it, which is exciting. Usually gothic books are quite atmospheric, and I love atmospheric books. And this really is a book, even though I haven't had this copy for that long, I remember seeing this book in a bookshop like years and years and years ago and thinking like, ooh, I think I would like that. And I think this came out like 20 years ago. I should probably just read it. Next, we have more historical fiction, but I think that this also has some horror vibes. It's The Wild Hunt by Emma Seckel, and this is set on this Scottish island, which is obviously a great setting. And we're following this woman who returns to the island after having tried to live on the mainland, and sort of, she had all of these dreams and it just didn't work out, so she returns to this island after her father passes away, and she's just trying to get a fresh start there, I guess. And then there's also something about a widower who just lost his wife, and he's also sort of grappling with that and trying to live a normal life. And it seems like we're following these characters who are really just trying their best. On this island, though, and this is like, I don't know how this plays out in the story, if it's like actual creatures or if it's just more of an abstract thing, but apparently there are these bird-like creatures on this island that are like rumored to carry the souls of the dead or something like that, and they like plague the island during October, I think. It is set in October, I'm guessing then, but again, I can't read all autumn books in autumn, and I've also heard that this is a good winter book, so I'm gonna try to read it in winter. But these bird-like creatures sort of plague the townspeople, and then I think a boy goes missing, and everybody loses their minds. Naturally. I really wonder what this is going to be like and what these creatures are, but I actually saw a TikTok with a review of this, and that person said like this is perfect to read in like autumn and winter. It's very atmospheric, very gothic, and that made me very excited. Then we have just a straight up mystery. It's Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson, and just the title of this makes me want to read it because it sounds so intriguing. The story, I think, is set at, like, in the mountains during winter, which makes it perfect for this time of year, obviously. And it's about this family reunion where it doesn't seem like anyone in this family likes each other. They don't really have a lot in common, except for the fact that they're all murderers, which is quite something. And I have no idea what else happens in the story. I just know that setup, and it sounds like a great start to a story. I have no idea how anything plays out in this. I don't really know what it's about besides that, but I'm just expecting this to be like a fun, sort of lighter type of book. And I mean, obviously if there are murders in it, it's going to be a little bit dark, but I'm expecting it to be more like fun, enjoyable, and fast-paced, and just like a quick read. Then we have some more mystery with We Are All the Same in the Dark by Julia Heaberlin. And this is set in a small town in Texas where this young girl disappeared a decade ago and no one knows what happened to her, no one ever found her. And I think the townspeople kind of like blamed her brother even though he didn't have anything to do with it. And because of that, he's kind of like a social pariah. And I think when we meet him, he finds some other girl in a field, like where he lives, and I don't think she talks, so there's a whole mystery around like who she is, and the detectives in town think that this maybe has something to do with that case of the other disappearance, and maybe it's connected, and I don't know what's going on, but it sounds very intriguing and a little dark. I'm expecting this to be a little bit more of a slow burn. I don't really know what I'm basing that on. I'm just getting that feeling. And I don't know if this is like a perfect book to read in winter, but there is something wintry about the cover, so I'm just thinking maybe. And there is something great about reading sort of darker books when it is darker outside, I think. Another book set in a small town that I have is Starling House by Alix E. Harrow. And this is a book that I'm recommended quite often, especially when I'm talking about like gothic books. This comes up very often, which makes me very excited. Although I do think this also has some fantasy elements to it. The story is set in this dying town that is only famous for this author who wrote a really famous book and then disappeared. And it says something about how this house, Starling House, appeared right before this author disappeared. And I don't know what that means. If that's like a fantasy thing or if it was just built. I don't really know. But everyone in town agrees that there's something weird about this house and everyone sort of stays away from it. But I think the heir, like the heir of this author, it may be a couple of generations after, I don't really know. But there is an heir living in the house. I don't think that's who we're following though. I think we're following this woman who ends up taking a job at this house. Even though she also like kind of wants to stay away from this house, she is just desperate and she needs a job, I think, to help her brother or something. So she goes, and I'm sure maybe that doesn't go so well. How the fantasy elements come into this, I don't really know, but I'm very excited to find out. And I do love a good gothic story, so I'm excited to read this. I also love this cover, like with the birds and everything. And this bird is like weirdly pretty. I don't know why, but very cute bird. And yeah, if the book is anything like the cover, it should be pretty good. Are there illustrations in this book? I didn't know that. Oh, there are. Maybe I knew that when I got this book, but I didn't realize that this was illustrated, or at least partly illustrated. That's really cool. I feel like illustrations always makes a book a little bit better. These illustrations look a little bit creepy, so maybe the book will be too. Then, of course, we have a T. Kingfisher book in this TBR because I'm obsessed with this author. And I have A House with Good Bones, which is a book I was planning on reading in autumn, but again, I can't just get to every book in autumn that I want to because the season is just too short. So I'm gonna try to read it in winter instead. This is about this woman who is going home to visit her mother, I think in her childhood home, and she's really excited because they have a great relationship, but then her brother tells her like, I think maybe something is off with mom, like she seems off. And then this main character gets there and there is something off about the mom. She's like really jumpy. She keeps looking over her shoulder even though there's nothing there. And I'm guessing there's something really weird and wrong with this house. I love this author's books and I feel like I can really trust her to write a good like haunted house story or like a weird house story. So I'm very excited to see where this goes and like where the story takes this house and everything. And yeah, I just love reading books from this author. Like, I can't get enough of them. Second to last, we have more historical fiction. We have The Way of All Flesh by Ambrose Parry. And this is set in 19th century Edinburgh, which is obviously a great setting. And we're following two characters, I think. One is a medical student, and the other is a housemaid of the mentor of the medical student. So that's sort of how they come together. And there's something about all of these gruesome deaths of young girls in Old Town in Edinburgh, and I think they're sort of investigating it. None of them are detectives though, so I think they're just doing it on their own. And I think I read somewhere that this housemaid is actually like really clever and she's so smart and driven, but because she's a woman she doesn't get the same opportunities as men in this time, and that like causes this sort of like rift or rivalry between these two characters. I don't really know how that works, but it sounds very intriguing. It sounds a little dark though, which I am into. I am hoping this is going to be very atmospheric. I feel like Edinburgh in any book is always atmospheric, but especially when it's like a historical setting, you can't really go wrong with it because it's such a good backdrop, especially to like a mystery story, I feel. So very excited about that, and yeah, I think this is going to be a little dark, but I'm very excited. Lastly, we have a book that I actually just got. I haven't even had time to haul this book yet, but I just wanted to include it because I really want to read it soon. It's The Haunting Season, Ghostly Tales for Long Winter Nights. Obviously, this is perfect for winter. Obviously, it is also beautiful. Like, this cover is amazing. And this is also a thing that I really appreciate when the foil is on the back as well. It doesn't really matter, but I notice these details and I really appreciate it. Also, when it's on, like, the spine, it's just a beautifully designed book. This is a short story collection. It's like an anthology, so there are different authors. And one of the reasons that I got this is that I realized I haven't read any short stories this year, and I don't think I read any last year either. And I do struggle with them sometimes, but also sometimes I really enjoy them, so I kind of want to get back into the habit of reading them. This has mostly authors that I haven't read, but we do have Laura Purcell, who wrote The Silent Companions, which I loved, and we have Kieran Millwood Hargrave, which I have a book from and I really want to read, so I'm intrigued to try this out. It seems like the stories are going to be a little bit spooky since it's called The Haunting Season, and yeah, I'm really excited about it. Beautiful, beautiful edition as well. Okay, that was the last book that I had to show you. Again, will I stick to this? I have no idea. It's so funny because I love making TBR videos and I love making TBR stacks, but I'm really not very good at sticking to them because I am mostly like a mood reader. And it's funny now as well because I made this like end of year TBR recently and I had all of these books that I was like, I'm gonna read these. Am I reading any of them now? No. I'm reading a random nonfiction book about Norwegian women during the war here and like their war efforts. Why? I don't know. It just sounded intriguing when I like needed a new book. Anyways, I would love to know if you have made a winter TBR or if there are any particular books that you just want to get to over the next couple of months. I would love to hear about it. As always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!